Hey, what's up, Vox&Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy, and you're listening to my podcast, Vox&Hops, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. Today's episode is another Spotlight on Redefining Darkness Records episode. I love doing these. I love showcasing extreme metal bands on the podcast. I'm so happy I started doing this. Today's episode is a special one because it is a band that I am a huge fan of. I have been lucky enough to watch this band grow from its creation, and I'm so stoked that the album is finally out. Of course, I am talking about Akurion. Akurion is a supergroup, basically, comprised of members of Cattle Decapitation, Cryptopsy, Neuraxis. It is a Montreal super powerhouse, and I absolutely love the record. It is incredible, and I'm so stoked to be able to play a track for you right now. So get ready, turn it up to 11. This is Leave Them Scars, taken from Akurion's first album, Come Forth to Me.
From this place of glory
Holy shit, that was good. I fucking love Akurion. This song is really special because it actually has some guests on it. It has Luc Lemay of Gorguts on it, and of course Lord Worm and Jean-Marie Leblanc from Vengeful. It is just a monster of a track, and the album is unrelenting, and you should absolutely go check them out if you do not know who Akurion is. I have put all of their links in the description of the podcast. Go buy their merch. Go pick it up. They are absolutely incredible. Also, you can go to Redefining Darkness's website, their e-store, and there is a promo code that you can use, which is VOX ampersand HOPS. You type that in and you will get 15% off of all CDs, vinyls, and cassettes. So go do that. Support extreme music. It is very important to support the things that we love right now. And extreme music is absolutely worth the love. On today's episode, I am with Rob Milley, the guitarist of Neuraxis and Akurion. So here it is, Vox&Hops, episode number 145.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Rob Milley from Akurion, Neuraxis, and now of Necrotic Mutation. I am stoked to be with you. I always like seeing you. We're both from Montreal, one of my favorite places in the world, one of the best music scenes, in my opinion, and you are now in 3 of the coolest bands from here, so that's awesome. Let's just start with a simple question. How are you? How have you been coping with social isolation?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm good, thanks. As good as can be, considering. But like we just said, been pretty chilled out for this last month and a half. Not much to do, you know. I got forced off, laid off from work, so yeah, just spending a lot of time inside and guitar. Lots of time working on guitar. So couldn't ask for anything better, you know.
That's what I like to hear from all my musician friends, that they're using this time creatively to challenge themselves, to push deeper and conquer some things that they may have put on the back burner because they didn't have the time before. So I like hearing that you're keeping busy in that sense. Let's start classic Vox&Hops question at this point. What is the soundtrack of your youth when you were growing up? What music was playing in your house when you were not in control of it? What music did your parents or your guardians listen to?
I'd say my mom was the primary music listener. And from what I remember, she listened to a lot of Bee Gees, Beatles, and I'd say Michael Jackson. And all the Jackson stuff, you know. So I particularly remember Michael Jackson's Thriller album when I was a little kid. That was the album.
Those are all solid songwriters right there, so something might have stemmed from that.
Yeah, it's funny. You listen back to something when you heard it as a kid, you hadn't heard in 20-something years, you're like, oh yeah, I love this stuff, you know?
What band was your first band that was your first love that you became obsessed with?
I guess the first band would be AC/DC. Like when the album Razor's Edge, I think, the song Thunderstruck. I remember when that came out, you know, like the na. That was it, you know. It
still rocks. It's a great song.
Yeah.
I love it to this day. It's really good. I see you're drinking a beer there, so let's get right into it. Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. What are you drinking on your side there, Rob?
It is a Dieu Du Ciel Moralité IPA.
Which is an absolute classic beer up here in Montreal from one of the pioneer craft beer breweries. And they just started putting it in cans, which it makes me very excited because it's your best bang for your buck, getting a big 473 milliliter. And I think the clock's in, is it 7%? I think it is 7%.
It is, I think it's a 6.6 or no? Where is it? 6.9. Yeah, almost 7.
There you go. So, yeah, I remember a lot of things about beer. But it's a great brew, and anyone that comes up on a beer trip here to Montreal should absolutely stop at Dieu Du Ciel, and they have their Péché Mortel, which is one of their most famous beers. I am drinking, or I will be drinking with you, Mandrill from MaBrasserie. Huge shout out to Gael and the rest of the MaBrasserie crew for hooking me up with some brews for my Vox and Hops interviews at home. I love going to MaBrasserie. I've actually had my 2 past birthdays there, and I just like going there. It's a very kid-friendly atmosphere. It's great for me with the kids and craft beer and fun. I love it.
Is that the one up near Rosemount area?
It is on Holt, right off of Delorme and Holt.
So yeah, the one near Brouhaha, I think. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Perfect beer crawl right there. Yeah. Pub crawl, sorry. Are you a craft beer enthusiast? Tell me about that as I pour this out.
Yes, I definitely am. I might not be to your level, but I definitely am an enthusiast. I enjoy a good IPA, microbrewery IPA. Good stout, good sours, you know.
Cheers, Rob.
Cheers.
Take me back to that first beer. Do you remember your first beer?
Probably like Molson Export, something like that. Molson Export or Molson Dry. Vaguely remember those beers. Well, I'll always remember them. They were terrible, you know.
I had a bunch of exports back in my youth. It's been a long time I haven't had a Mandrill. I really like it. It's a Saison style beer brewed with Brett. Saison Brett et Tropical. Absolutely delicious. Slightly tart. Hoppy. It pours out like a nice hay color. I love my Mandrill. It's since it came out 2 years ago, I was immediately drawn in by the big Mandrill monkey that they have on the can. Love it.
Nice. I've yet to try that. I'll have to check that out.
Absolutely. Let's talk a bit more about craft beer. How do you go out and find craft beers? Is it something that you go to pubs? Are you on the search for them? Montreal is such a hotbed right now for craft beer. I find myself just inundated with a wish list that I want to find. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, mix of both. Definitely started with going to microbreweries, I guess you could say, like Saint Buck, famous, Cheval Blanc, Dieu Du Ciel, a couple others. And I also tried to, discover new breweries throughout Quebec, take little trips here and there throughout the years to, places that I'd been hearing about. There's some kind of expedition you can go on in Lac Saint-Jean. I think I didn't do that, but I was always wanting to do that, where you can go up and visit all the breweries are. But and then I have the beer stores that are in Montreal that my go-tos, like La Paluzzo, and I have Bierolog, which is near my place, so it's pretty convenient.
Absolutely. That's a bunch of great places that I go to all the time. Shout out to Paloozo. Probably the coolest craft beer store up here in Montreal. Probably one of the oldest ones, though, that just had such a vast selection. I love going in there, and I always end up spending way too much money. Let's touch back on the Montreal scene. I always like to ask this question to Montreal's musicians. I know it's annoying. I get asked it. I have like my answer for it. Why do you think Montreal has so many metal bands that have come from here?
I would say, Montreal is definitely a very cultural arts influenced city. I think it's been like that since 60s, 70s at least. So I think there's always been that openness for music. And then, that trickles down to every style of music. I mean, I'm sure Montreal has a ton of styles, that are flourishing that I have no idea about, but I'm sure it's crazy. But metal, I'd say I'm trying to think back, but pretty sure, something like Iron Maiden must have like hugely influenced, because I know they're huge here, Iron Maiden, and then started the thirst for metal, I guess. But yeah, I think, and then the fact that, we have those long winters, that probably help keep people inside practicing doing something, Steve's music store maybe had a bit of an influence on influencing people to pick up instruments, maybe. And all the clubs that we've had, so.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I never thought about Steve's as an option. You're right about that. Steve's is a classic music store here in Montreal. It's been open for years and years and years. Sadly, it's good that they moved and they relocated right onto St. Catherine Street, but the old Steve's had such a vibe that I miss. It was in this dilapidated series of buildings, which somehow interconnected, and it made no sense, but it had such a feel to it. And you're probably right that a lot of musicians found each other there. I hadn't thought about it that way. I always thought back to those medley shows and to Cité de Mille as an answer, but Steve's needs to be added to that. I agree.
That's true. City 2000, yeah. That's another one. And I don't even work for Steve's. It just came to my mind.
Take me back to your first show that you saw here in Montreal, the first extreme show.
Extreme, or like metal in general?
Metal in general.
First show ever was 93, was Anthrax, White Zombie, and Voivod at the Verdun Auditorium.
Badass lineup right there.
So you could say, because Voivod was the opening band, that was the first metal band I'd ever seen ever, and then obviously White Zombie and Anthrax. I was there for Anthrax, but that was the first show. And I realized then, not really knowing much about Voivod, but that there was a local scene here because they were speaking French. I was like, these guys are from here. So it was cool.
Absolutely, and Voivod's a big part of that, why the scene has become something. So many people were influenced by the success of Voivod that they must have been influenced.
Yeah. I'd say this is just my preference. I'm actually a fan of later day Voivod than early Voivod. I know that might be blasphemous to say, but
I agree. Dan Malganay is a sick guitarist. Absolutely. I'd love to have him on the podcast.
Yes, he is sick. He's amazing. One of the best.
Take me to your first time on stage, and what was that story, and how did it go down?
My first band that we played a show was a band called Cursed. Type of a Slayer-ish creator type of band, and we played a couple shows at clubs that no longer exist. But you remember the Backstreet or the Cat House? There was two names at one point, and the Jailhouse Rock venue. So yeah, we played those shows
there. How were those shows? What was it like being on stage? Are you someone that immediately loved being on stage, or were there some nerves that you had to battle through?
Definitely nerves. First show we did was the Jailhouse, and then we opened for a Metallica cover band. Probably total of 10 people that came to the show. It was still cool though, Our friends came out, and the second show, maybe even less people that came, but definitely nervous at first, but definitely felt something inside me was like, I could get used to this. I like this.
And then eventually Neuraxis happened and you became a part of that. I'm not familiar enough with the history of Neuraxis to know if you were there at the beginning of it or if you joined afterwards.
I joined in 96, so the band started sometime in 94. And I think they started playing live shows in 95. They did, probably a string of shows in 95. And I was friends with their singer because I went to high school with him. Their first singer, Maynard Moore, on the first album. So he was always keeping me in the loop with what they were doing. And, I was definitely thought it was cool. And then at some point they were about to record the first album, Imagery, and the guitar player at the time, the other guitar player, not Steven, but the other guitar player, they were starting to have a bit of trouble as he's maybe not up to par on playing. So he started to kind of tell me, hey, would you be interested? And then slowly but surely, I was like, yeah, sure. I'd definitely try it. And so I tried out for them. And played my first show in 96 with them, opening for Dying Fetus. So that was quite a show.
You got no pressure.
Dying Fetus and November Grief from here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first impression of Neuraxis?
Yeah, definitely impressed me. Musicianship-wise, was very impressive. And it kind of, apart from them, I had heard of Cryptopsy before, obviously. Cryptopsy was probably the first local band from Montreal that I found out about. And then maybe Lunatics. And then I heard about Neuraxis. So it definitely sparked my interest of finding out what was going on around here. But this is pre-internet, so you could only really find out about it through flyers or... Remember Rock on Stock? There was a store, a CD store.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So yeah, going down to Rock and Stock every weekend or type of thing, you'd find out about local bands. Oh, sorry, actually, there was Gorguts too that I remember about learning about. So yeah, definitely impressed with Neuraxis. So that's why I joined this.
And you drove Neuraxis for many, many, many years. I want to say up until basically when Ollie joined Cryptopsy, 2009 or 2011, somewhere in that point, right?
Yeah, basically, I guess the end of 2011 is when, things were put on hold. So, yeah, I'm not sure when Ollie joined Cryptopsy, but yeah, about the end of 2011.
And there was a point where you eventually were in the band and you took more and more control of Neuraxis.
Yeah, at a certain point, because Stephen Henry and Jan TL are the I guess you could say the founding members of the band, and Stephen was always the driving force of the band. And at a certain point, once I joined, we had a good chemistry, Stephen and I, and we started writing riffs together. And at a certain point, I won't go into the whole details, but business wise, I guess I was getting a little bit older because I joined when I was 17. So
wow.
It's pretty young,
Yeah.
But, a couple of years later, I'm in my early 20s and starting to work in business management and sales and stuff. So I gathered some, experience in working in management. So slowly but surely, I kind of shifted into taking care of things for the band at a certain point. So, yeah. Which
is never an easy transition to happen in a band for the vibe of the band. It's always a bit difficult.
To take over or to take charge?
For yourself, it's something that you had to do, you thought was the right thing, but for the others to accept is always not the easiest.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody was it was a smooth transition, it wasn't anything like, there was no negative vibes. It was just a natural thing that happened. And then from there on, yeah, because apart from, I obviously wrote the music too with Steven and then eventually writing most of the music myself. But yeah, it's something I wanted to do. I was enjoying it. So it was until a certain point.
Which is where I'm heading next is I feel like Neuraxis at the end had such a star-studded lineup. I can't believe that it's over. Tiger on drums, who's now in Cataclysm. You got Ollie, who's now moved on to Cryptopsy, and then obviously Cattle Decapitation. You have yourself, who's a fantastic guitarist, and Alex is just such a ferocious frontman. And then he made his way into the world of wrestling. He was doing that at that time too as well. He's got his own YouTube channel where Alex Reacts, I believe it's called, which is doing very well too. So it's just such a star-studded lineup too. What led to the end of Neuraxis? I don't think I've ever heard this story.
Well, you could say that it's probably just a mix of, having done a lot of touring, putting out a bunch of albums, at a certain point, it's not always easy to keep that train running, going full throttle, and just usual things that happen, label trouble, booking agent trouble, finances, and then the classic inner band turmoil, so at a certain point, you got to weigh your pros and cons. So.
And for a moment, it was just on hold. It wasn't like we're done. I don't feel like you guys have ever made that statement that you are done. So I would like to see a reunion show at least, or at least a last show here in Montreal.
Well, I guess you could say that was kind of the thing that I decided was I wasn't going to declare it finished because you never know. But, you never know. Yeah, so...
I think it'd be super cool, even if I get all the alumni to come out and to do a pure everyone that was involved with Neuraxis show.
Oh yeah, I mean
in the lobby of that building where the medley used to be. But
yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, isn't it a condo building or something now?
Exactly. Yes. But you and Ollie obviously were in the same camp because right when Neuraxis was falling apart, sorry for the term, that's when Akurion started, or the idea of Akurion came to be. So talk me through that. I know that Akurion just came out on Refining Darkness Records. It is a fantastic album. Being in a band with Ollie, I've heard it for, I want to say 2 years now. At least forms of it, right?
Yeah.
And I've loved everything that I've heard. I love the album. Why did it take so long for it to come out, or for it to come to fruition from 2011 to a 9-year project? It must have been frustrating for you. That's like 3 questions I asked you. So let's start with how you and Ollie came to this idea of starting a new project together.
Well, you're right. Patience has definitely been the key. So at I guess you could say at the tail end of Neuraxis, after getting back from touring, a hardcore period of time where we were on tour for almost 4 months, a bit of break was needed for everybody. But at the same time, what I usually do is just to get ideas out. I guess you could call it a form of communication or therapy. Is just I'll write music, I'll write guitar riffs, and so I started writing some new stuff. It very well could have been something new for Neuraxis, but at a certain point, the idea came to me that I wanted to reach out to Mike DeSalvo, somebody that I met through Cryptopsy when he first came up here, and we had kind of been in touch, and we'd chilled over the years, even though he was always kind of low key. At that point, we'd bump into each other and then hang out, and so at a certain point, I reached out to him, and he was interested. So me and him basically got together. I showed him my riff ideas. I had some structures, some songs, and we did it like the old school way. Maybe I think he might have even recorded on a ghetto blaster, just my ideas, like no Pro Tools or anything like that. So
that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and of course we did it over enjoying some beers, and so that
some dark beers if you're with Mike.
Yes, he is a stout fan. Although he does do the IPA though. But yeah, so I mean, I think we just did it not out of the start of it was not out of a goal to make it a well-known thing, or we need to get this out. It was just for the pure pleasure of creating music. So that's why I didn't want to force it in any way. So we just kind of let it play out over a couple months, and we started getting ideas together. And at a certain point, the thought of getting other musicians involved came up, and because Ollie and I, like, we got along super well when we were together in Neuraxis. An amazing bass player, a super good friend. So he was the first person I thought of to join us on bass. And I hadn't seen him in a while, and he had started to play with Cryptopsy too. So he started, I guess you guys started getting busy doing that album, was a self-titled album, I think?
That is correct, yeah.
I think we bumped into each other at a show, and then he was down for it. So we started to get together, and then we needed a drummer. So, of course, at that point, Ollie from Neuraxis, Ollie Baudouin, he was in Cataclysm now. So, he was off doing his thing. So basically, Tommy McKinnon, the idea that came up for him, and I'd already played with him in Neuraxis. So he was down for that, and we had a good chemistry together writing music. So we got together, all four of us, and started hashing out these songs. And, there was already 4 or 5 songs together already that I had, and then we finished off writing. But we took our time, basically, maybe once a week, maybe once or twice a month. So that's why it took a while for us to put it together. We didn't do it in like a forced manner. It was just like get together and hash out ideas, and slowly but surely we came up with a bunch of songs, and then we had the idea that if we record this, we want to do it all together as a group in the same room and play together to get our kind of like energies together instead of like doing it all separate. So we had to practice these songs for a couple years to make sure we could do it.
Which is really cool. Nobody does this shit anymore. Nobody does this live off the floor stuff. I've never done a record like that. Ever. I've done the old school record to a tape thing, but never live off the floor. And I can agree that you got to get your shit together if you want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that was the goal. So we also didn't have a label. We didn't have any type of live plans to play a show. So there was nothing really forcing us to put a deadline on it or a timeline on it. So that's why it took a while. And over time, we got new ideas just to improve these songs. I think that helped. And then we did decide to record something to kind of introduce us to the world. We said, hey, we're here. So we recorded a song at the Grid with Chris Donaldson. And we did try that. We did the live in a room thing together. It worked out super well. So that was cool. And then we continued working on the songs. And then the plan was to record an album. And so we got down to the recording of the album. It went well. We did it over a weekend. We did 2 days, basically doing the whole set from A to Z, all in one take. And then we did the second day the same thing, and to see which versions were the best versions. And so that was done. And then after that, we started doing the overdubs. Of course, have to do overdubs, but we kept the live tracks, the drums, the vocals, the bass, and the initial rhythm guitar, and then you added on to that after. And then, some things happened during that period of time. My dad was sick already, and then unfortunately he passed away, so that obviously delayed things. And then Mike's wife got sick, and then sadly passed away as well. So that can, attributes to the delay of things. And then once that all, once we were kind of able to get past that, not that we ever got past that, but, we continued working on the album, and then we looked for a deal with a label, and then we signed a deal, and then now it's getting released. So.
It is released, and it's an amazing album. So you had to go through hell and back to get this out, which is very commendable. Were there ever times when you're looking around at the other members, like Ollie's out on the road, did you find yourself feeling jealous that you were not out there with him? Sometimes I feel like that when I'm at home now, when I see Flo out with Ultimass and Ollie's out with Cattle. It's actually why I started Vox&Hops, is because I saw this coming, and I know myself, and I would be a little bit jealous of them, even though I'm proud of them and I love what they're doing. I wanted to keep my finger on the pulse of the music scene when they're gone. So I knew Chris had his studio, and that's sort of why I started Vox and Hops, a part of me, for sure. Did you ever feel jealous when your guys are out there?
I wouldn't say jealous, but, there's a little bit of, oh, man, that's cool, like, I'd love to be kind of, like, doing that again, the travel. Well, I love the touring aspect. There's certain things that are a little harder, to deal with on tour, but to see Ollie and to see you guys when you guys were out on tour, I was happy. Definitely was kind of missing doing that, but definitely happy for Ollie and everything he's accomplished. So I really when he was away, we would just continue working on the songs, the three of us, or when whoever was available. And like I said, there was no pressure. There was no, like, we have to get this out. Even though there were certain points where certain people were like, oh, we got to get this out. We just kind of always had to step back and go, we'll get it out when it's done, so.
And you've crafted a beautiful record thanks to that, with some very cool guests on it. That whole track with I think it's Lord Worm, Luc Lemay, and Jean-Marie, all in one track. It's I think it's the opener. Am I right?
Yep, definitely.
It's totally awesome. So talk me through having that idea of getting Wormy and Luke and everyone to be on one track together.
Yeah, that's kind of I guess the only other thing missing would have been to have you on there to have the ultimate cryptopsy experience. But definitely having Wormy on there, because he's such a mythical kind of figure, and he's not a very sociable. I guess he could be sociable, but very, very surprised that he agreed to it. But him and Mike are, they've been close friends forever, so I assume that helped make him, come on board. But that was definitely interesting to hear Wormy now. I find his vocals have shifted over the years. Now he's definitely more of a higher pitched kind of vocalist now versus, None So Vile, It's Wormy. It still sounds like Wormy, but and then Luc Lemay has always been an idol to me, to everybody in the band, and it's just like an honor to have Luc on there. And he was super down to do it. And we also had him. He did it himself. Actually, we asked him to orchestrate some parts for the album on violin and orchestration, and he went above and beyond that, and he did a full 4 or 5 minute intro to a song, and he just kept on adding to it. So we were like, my God, okay, this is amazing. So that was an honor. And Jean-Marie, of course, is vengeful. And I also have I'm playing in a project with Jean-Marie called Hourglass. So there's that connection there. We had a couple other people too come on. We had the singer for Coma Cluster Void. There's a couple singers in Coma Cluster Void. There's Mike, and there's another guy named Austin. He did some guest vocals, and also Sylvia from Coma Cluster Void did some guest operatic style vocals on there, and Jean Strider did some piano, and she also was the one that mastered our album. So a lot of collaborations are.
It takes a city to get an Akurion record out,
yeah.
But it was worth the wait. And if anyone hasn't heard the new Akurion record, Come Forth to Me, you should absolutely go check it out right when you're finished listening to this. Rob, what is your hangover cure?
Red fruit punch Gatorade is the first step. That's the first step, yeah. And why, I don't know. I was just told that I knew Gatorade was, the electrolytes in there help, get your, I guess, system back with some energy. But the red one was I was told that is the cure. So I tried it, and it pretty much works.
Good to know. I've heard the Gatorade, but the color was never specified to me, so I'm going to add that to my book.
And I'm definitely not one to promote this type of food or this company, but McDonald's, for some reason, you just get something, a Big Mac trio, and it works wonders.
I want to touch on you joining Necrotic Mutation. Is it a fill-in or is it a pure join?
I am now part of the band, yeah.
Beautiful. Necrotic Mutation, for people that don't know, you got to go back and listen to, I believe it's episode 13, where I had Sébastien Carateau, who is probably one of the best extreme metal vocalists in the world, from here in Montreal, originally from Rimouski. And Necrotic Mutation is from there. They're a classic Montreal extreme metal band, death metal band from the early 90s, and they reformed recently, and now you're a part of that. So talk me through that.
Yeah, so basically they did reform, I guess, a couple years ago, and I think they started to, they played like the Heavy MTL one year, and then they did a show with you guys in Barf there, that show, which is a great show.
That was super cool. Huh?
Very great show, yeah. It was, and I'd been, you know, a fan of those guys since when I first discovered them back in, say, the mid to late 90s. Just like you, like all bands, you know, local scenes, so you know what's going on. And then at some point when they reformed their guitar player, which was Eric Jarin, who plays in Despised Icon, I believe the fact that Despised Icon reformed and they were writing albums and going on tour again, he just couldn't put the time in anymore. So they got Jan Thiel, formerly Neuraxis.
Who was, exactly. Yeah. We're so incestuous up here.
It's crazy, yeah. It's crazy. So they got Jan in, who was a Neuraxis member and also Obsolete Mankind member. And so he took Eric's place. So they did a couple of shows, and then their other guitar player, Sylvain, I think he was just about to have kids, so he was like, can't do it anymore. So right away, Jan, you know, asked me, would you be down? And I was like, definitely. So that's it. His recommendation to the others was all that was needed. They're like, if Jan says he's good, then I was like, and I was in. So even before even meeting them.
That's awesome. That means that we share a jam room.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and you know, like I only got to do like 3-4 jams in that room, and since the pandemic, and then it got shut down. So
yeah, hopefully they'll figure that out and let us start doing that shortly. You mentioned before that you guys meant Akurion would never have been planning to play live, but when you said that, you said we had. So does that mean that there's a possibility and a thought? When I sat down with Mike back a while back for a Vox&Hops interview, it was a really fun interview, and then we basically closed the bar and stayed and drank a little bit too much.
I heard, and that's, you know, you're having an interview with Mike. Come on.
The interview was nice. It was fine. It was finished by I think we were finished the interview by at least 8 p.m. I probably left at 1 in the morning. We closed the bar. It was fun. Shout out to Saint Buck for feeding us all the good darkness. But he had mentioned that if the offer was right, you guys might be interested in doing some shows. Now with COVID, everything is obviously finished. But were there some offers? Were there some shows that did get canceled that didn't get announced?
No, there was no shows on the books, but I guess, yeah, it's like what you said, Mike said. It's like if there was an offer that seemed, you know, worth it, in the sense that like it wasn't a project that was meant to necessarily be live. So maybe some of these songs might not work as well live, you know. But if there's, you know, enough interest, if there's an interesting offer, you know, like if hypothetically, I don't know, some festival said, hey, we want you guys to come play, we'll fly you out. Well, okay, if it's all expenses included, you know, and it's a reputable festival, you know, it would be definitely considered. We'd have to get together and practice again. We haven't practiced since the recording of the album, so, you know, these songs are long songs too. Some of them go to 9 minutes.
I love it. Rob, thank you so much for sitting down with me, sharing a craft beer, and talking about your life, your music. I love it. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you face to face for real and share craft beer again. To the end of COVID-19. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thank you for having me. I do hope to see you soon. I don't know when we'll be able to do shows again, but let's hope for the fall.
I'm hoping to. Yeah. I'm hoping to, brother. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks, bro. Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. I had such a great chat with Rob. He is such a talented musician. I love Akurion, as I was mentioning, super group from here in Montreal. I can't wait to sit down with you for real again, Rob. It's been too long. Once the world goes back to normal, I can't wait to hang out with you and drink some more craft beer so that we can continue this chat. Today is Wednesday, which means tomorrow is another Vox&Hops Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. I love these hangs. I look forward to them. The link for that is available in the description of this podcast. Tell your metal-loving, craft beer-loving friends to come and join us for an epic hang alongside some of the Vox&Hops alumni, other Vox&Hops heads, some of my closest friends, and myself. Come hang out, drink some craft beer, and we'll talk about life, metal, and of course, craft beer. I have one more episode coming at you this week. It's going to drop on Friday, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops heads.